There you go. The lady's smart. She just said recording in progress. So thank you very much for attending. My name is Greg Newman. I'm the CEO of the Clovis Chamber of Commerce, and this is our Wake Up Clovis program. We started a couple years ago, and it's been a pleasure to get to meet and talk to in a more intimate setting the leaders of our community. So first of all, we can't do any of our programming without our wonderful sponsors. So I'll be the sponsor pitch man guy and thank Guardian Accounting is one of our sponsors, also the City of Clovis, who's been very supportive of our events and programs, and then Clovis Community College. So thank you to those. And without further ado, so we have some changes in the leadership of our wonderful City of Clovis this year, and it's a pleasure to bring on our new city manager, John Holt, and our assistant city manager, is it assistant? Andy Haussler. Andy, we've spoken with before on one of our Wake Up Clovis calls. But John, we'll get right into it. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey into the chair that you're now sitting in?
Sure, I appreciate that. If you don't mind, we do have a short presentation we put together that I'd like to share with you. Sure. And then once we get through it, we'll open it up for a Q&A. Okay. So Andy, if you could share screen and start the PowerPoint.
All right.
Okay, next slide, please.
And make it a full screen if you can, Andy. There you go.
There we go. Okay, quick introductions for myself, then I'll turn it over to Andy. I am the new city manager effective January 1st. I've got 27 years of experience in local government. My training and background early is in the finance department. I started off 5 years in the city of Visalia. I've lived in the city of Clovis for over 30 years. And I've worked in the city manager's office in various positions for the past 22 years here in the city of Clovis. The most recent of which was the past 11 years as the assistant city manager, which Andy is now. So in another part of my life, my part-time, I spent 5 years on active duty and 25 years in the reserves. I'm a retired Navy captain, retired in 2016. So that was a big part of my life. So that's me in a nutshell. Andy, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. So if you see a Jeep driving around town with Navy Captain as the license plate, that's John. So very proud to have and thank him for his service. So I have 20 years of experience in local government, both here and at the county, mostly here, coming up on 16 years. Most recently, I've been the Economic Development Director for the City of Clovis, and I've been doing that for 6 or 7 years. Love the job, love the community. Before that, all the local government experience, I worked in the energy sector. I bought and sold energy. I'm an alum of Fresno Pacific, both for undergrad and graduate, and have been in the area ever since graduating from college. We have lived in Clovis. I have 3 kids here, and we've been in Clovis for about 14 years. So very happy to call Clovis home, and very humbled to ask to serve the community in my new role.
Thank you. Next slide. I should have added, I also have 4 kids and 13 grandkids, so they keep me pretty busy, and they all live here within the 936 zip code, so I'm not going anywhere. I want to brag about the city a little bit, just because it's our baby and it's hard to be objective about, but the City of Clovis is a destination of choice and an employer of choice. We're a premier city to live in. We have a pretty high level of amenities and high expectations for service from our constituency. If you ask a new resident why they moved to Clovis, it's generally going to be 2 reasons, as you guys know: Clovis Unified School District and our public safety. One of the goals of the City Council is for the City of Clovis to be an employer of choice. We're very selective in our hiring. And we look at it as a career and not a job. Next slide, please. Some quick numbers, stats, just give you an idea. If you go back to 1970, we had a population of about 20,000 people, and we had approximately 7,000 homes. We've grown significantly as being one of the fastest growing cities in the state of California over the years. Population is just right about 122,000. We average about 3 residents per home, so we're sitting at about 40,000 units right now. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of the number of homes built each year, as you can see in the early 2000s, we're in 3, 4, and 5. We're in the neighborhood of 2,000 units per year. And as you all know, the recession hit and we're pretty significantly impacted, going down from 2008 to 2012, where we began to climb again. Over the past 5 years, we've averaged about 1,000 units per year. 1950, when the city was 1 square mile centered around the downtown area. And as you know, the growth that has taken place over the past 75 years, we're now over 25 square miles. Some of the major projects that are going on in the city right now are going to be the build of Fire Station 6, which is in Loma Vista, which is in southeast Clovis. Fire Station number 2 is about 50 years old, and we're getting ready to basically scrape it and rebuild it. And that's located in southwest Fresno on Minnewawa. Landmark Commons, which is right here near City Hall, 3rd and Clovis Avenue, is that under construction, is going to be the senior center, the transit center, and coming soon, the county library. Big project this year also is going to be the Shaw Avenue widening east of town. And then the Village Green Park is, I think it's a 6-acre park in southwest Clovis, located south of the new Fire Station 6, which is approximately Leonard and Shaw-ish.
Yeah, I think that's just a southeast Clovis.
Southeast, you're right, sorry. And you're supposed to catch that.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Some assistant you have.
All right, some of the challenges as I walk into this office is going to be lack of affordable housing. It's incredible how prices have risen. I worry about where my kids are going to afford to live here in Clovis. I don't want them moving too far away. Over the past 10 years, the state has continued to encroach on local control. Some of the biggest of which is going to be the housing and control of how we manage our general plan and housing in the city of Clovis. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons people move here is the higher level of service that our city provides our constituency. And one of the challenges that we're going to have going forward is going to be able to maintain that level of service to our residents. Inflation, just like any private business out there, the city of Clovis is experiencing the impact of inflation by having to pay for more for everything that we do buy. Just as the private sector is, with the job market is very tight right now. And we're seeing fewer people apply for jobs. And we see, for the first time in my career here at the city of Clovis, we see people leaving the city of Clovis for other jobs. So we're working on that and taking a look at it. But one of the challenges we're going to have is with retention and recruitment. We are, sorry about that, in a spam. The City Health complex itself was built in 1975, and we're literally outgrowing it. And one of the challenges we have is going to be, where are we going to house the new employees to serve the larger population? And then Andy will kind of talk about a little bit more, but one of the challenges we have is going to be maintaining or increasing the city's jobs housing balance, so that we do not become a bedroom community for the greater Fresno Clovis region. So those are some of the big challenges we have. There's many others, but those are a couple of the big ones. And now I would like to turn it over to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit about economic development, and then we'll come back for a Q&A.
All right, so once an economic development guy, always an economic development guy. So I put together some slides, kind of just generally of economic conditions that we're all feeling. The charts that we'll look at first are at a national level, and just for full disclosure, I stole these from Wall Street Journal, so hopefully they're right. But this is where we're at GDP-wise on a quarterly basis. You can see we're back up, kind of back on trend with where things were at pre-pandemic. So that is good news, but as you know, it's not the whole story. You can see where the GDP has shifted, and the chart to the left shows which sectors have grown the most or some that have retracted, such as exporting has retracted. That's probably due to the shipping constraints that we're all hearing about or experiencing in your businesses. But we've seen some significant growth in durable goods and in food service and healthcare, along with business investment during the 2021 change. The forecast going forward is for us to kind of drop back down to a normalized GDP growth down into the 2, 3, maybe 4% range. Whereas last year we averaged around 6%. And we had, after that huge drop and spike in 2020. So that's all encouraging to see the economy is expanding and recovering, but it is somewhat uneven and there are headwinds. You guys have probably experienced some of this, where this is a chart showing credit card spending changes from a year earlier, and some sectors are doing well, some aren't. Airlines saw a bounce back right in the beginning of January here, whereas lodging and travel dropped. Restaurants saw a spike. Home supply warehouses are kind of flat. Wholesale clubs are kind of flat. But the money is shifting the economy to where people are spending, and things like Omicron and government stimulus, I think, are major drivers of that. Also, there's a shift between people purchasing items for their homes, for staying at home, such as durable goods. You're seeing that drop, and services come back to kind of a baseline of where we were at in 2020. So services are a huge part of our economy. That is important to see them coming back, but there is a shift going on, and you may be experiencing that in your own business. And we're seeing that in forecasting for our tax revenues, because very few, if any, services have any kind of tax associated with them for the city's revenues. Which, getting back to John's comments about inflation, you guys are all feeling this too. Total compensation for all civilian workers changed from a year earlier. It has just gone off the charts after a steep drop during the last recession. It dropped a little bit when this one hit, and then it just took off like a rocket ship. So if you're wondering if you're alone in experiencing the price pressures of keeping staff on board and what you're having to pay them, you are not. In addition to that, John mentioned the quits. So California is amongst a club here of states that are above 50% quit rates. And I'm not sure what our local numbers are, but it's definitely huge. There's a lot of labor churn going on. And that has been a huge challenge to meeting the expanding economy's needs and meeting your business needs going forward. So I would provide these to you in an effort to say you're not alone in dealing with a rapidly transitioning economy. So we'll see where things go. Hopefully things moderate a little bit. In addition to that, we had the latest wave of COVID, which is beginning to wane. Starting to hear about restrictions being lifted, but we had a huge number of people nationwide out sick in January of 22. We experienced that as an employer here as well, here at the city. And I know just from talking to some of you, you did as well. So we put all that together and we're kind of in a squishy spot economically. Lots of opportunity for growth, but it's hard to meet that demand and hard to know exactly how much to invest to get there. So I'm going to go through and just highlight some things that are going on relative to commercial development. And this is a slide I actually showed you guys, I think, at least a year ago. And this is things that had happened right when the pandemic hit. New businesses that had launched, and we had a lot of success, such as the Costco at that point. Costco was only like 8 months old when the pandemic hit. For example, it's been 2 years. Hard to believe, but we were able to fill big boxes. We had some new hotels open up. Things were trucking right along. And during the pandemic, we've had a lot of success economically. And I say this to be as an encouragement to you all. People have not been standing still. People have not been hunkering down. People have been making major investments. And I'll go through some of these. For some reason, you all are super willing to wait for hours for Raising Cane's crispy chicken. that took over the old Pier 1 that nationally went bankrupt, and we got that thing scraped and rebuilt pretty much about a year from when they went vacant. So that was really encouraging. Shaw Avenue continues to be strong. United Health took over a vacant building further west on Shaw. The Milan Institute took over a building further west on Shaw. So we're seeing continued investment along the Shaw Avenue corridor. The County of Fresno continues to invest. They took over the old Costco and turned it into Class A office to add employees, getting to our jobs housing balance. So the County of Fresno is probably north of 2,000 employees in Clovis now, whereas beginning the pandemic, they were pretty much at maybe 300 or 400. So we've had huge growth there. We have a new residence inn under construction. We have restaurants that moved into Old Town. The Local opened up, Neighbors opened up. Cabinet Connection got going. Provost and Pritchard, an engineering firm, amongst many other engineering and architectural firms, opened up in town. Rare Earth Coffee started kicking out coffee, which I've become a dedicated customer. We've also had kind of fun, Crow and Wolf, as well as Machine Head and other brewers got going during the pandemic. And now we have like Brewfest and brew trails going on in Clovis. Things that we've always been trying to achieve for the last 10, 15 years are coming together. We had Anlin doing an expansion. In fact, they're under construction right now on some new facilities to expand their product line, and they purchased additional property. The city was participatory in that. Clovis Community continues their expansion, and CHSU is now in their second class of medical students out there at their campus in the R&T Park. And there's offices being opened up there that are taking advantage of what the school is bringing. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs announced a new campus, so we're really seeing a lot of growth in that area. They haven't broken ground yet. And then the Veterans Memorial District opened up their museum in the old Rickey building, as many of us know it. And then we broke ground on the senior center, the transit hub, and started putting together the pad for the county library. All during a time when severe disruption was going on. So it's pretty exciting to see what's going on, kind of despite all the unknowns. And then that to me is a vote of huge confidence in the city, our economy, and really our people, that the market is demanding these services and there's opportunity to make money, either here or be based here and provide product across the country, such as Cabinet Connections and Anlin. So we're really excited to see that growth happen. It's critical to being able to provide the services and the jobs that our residents need and expect. In addition to that, I have to, my hat's off to Greg and his team for pulling together and being able to do all their events this year. Those are a huge boon to our economy and a huge part of our identity. So we thank you. Thank you for going through the pain. I got to walk alongside Greg as watching him try to navigate that and his team, and fully acknowledge the level of effort that was gone in to be able to have Big Hat and like the Clovis Rodeo and all of the farmers markets, and Clovis Unified brought back some of our athletic events. So our tourism is going strong. And one thing of note, we got our most recent hotel numbers just a few days ago, and we're doing pretty much better than ever. So I think that's a testament to the work the community has done to attract people to our community. And really thank you for that, and look forward to being even more normal going forward. So I'm excited about that going forward, as well as grateful for this last year. All right, so some future opportunities. Up in the northeast corner of town, we have commercial projects being planned and being put together for the corner of Shepherd and Willow. Master plans are supposed to be coming in soon, as well as further commercial development. So that's a hot corner for commercial retail. We have a lot of interest in that area. As you can imagine, there's a lot of rooftops that are underserved in that area, and we're actively marketing that area. We have the beginnings of a shopping center coming together just to the east of the Target Center of Willow and Herndon. I think the first in is a tire shop, but there's more commercial looking at that, as well as the medical office and others. And on the south side of that area, there's also some office and commercial being looked at. I've heard everything from some mixed use. I've also heard potentially another car dealer. So we'll see where the chips fall, but we're excited about that area. Herndon has a ton of eyeballs, ton of opportunity. 168 and Clovis Avenue and Herndon is like main of Eastern Fresno County. That area continues to have huge demand and interest. Plus we have an industrial park tucked in there that has had lots of demand. That's where we have some of the breweries coming in. A lot of the professional firms are coming into spaces, both on the north and south sides of Herndon in that area. We also have the Golden Triangle. Those property owners have come together and are starting to work on some master plans to be able to develop that. That is just south of In-N-Out Burger, that vacant land there. We've had hotels proposed. We have some offices proposed in there, restaurants. So we'll see where it goes. It's a few years out, but it's coming. And if you want to be part of it, give me a call. Further out, this is where we have, we're just to the west of the hospital. We've had another major medical user propose to go out there. So that's encouraging. Plus we have some other retail and we have a lot of apartments that got added in that area. It's a mixed use area. So that area is a major spot for growth. And we really see it as being a medical hub that is leveraging the hospital and the medical school. The R&T Park I've touched on. If you're looking for office space, Class A office, there is a developer building office space out there just north of CHSU. And the medical school itself has major expansion plans over the next 10 years. So that area is going to be a huge economic engine for us going forward. Old Town Clovis, near and dear to all city staff's heart in our community. Always have been, people always want to be in Old Town. That's where the spot to be, especially for a professional office. And it really has been, I think, a life-giving spot for people during COVID to be able to come down, go to an event, grab a cup of coffee, have lunch, and do some local shopping. We've really seen the local businesses embrace the last few years. But there are opportunities for redevelopment. So if you're into that, give me a call. Out in Loma Vista, this is near Clovis East High School. John mentioned this. We've started construction. I think we're more than started, probably about halfway through construction of Fire Station 6. Pretty soon, you'll also see a park growing adjacent to Fire Station 6. This is a major park. It's not a neighborhood park. It's really designed to be an event space that could host things like a big hat festival, for instance, concerts, a food truck Saturday, another farmer's market. North of that, we have a developer that is just about ready to pull permits for a shopping center, and he has got major national tenants signed for that. I think he has a few spots left if you're interested, but that is all coming together to be a really great community center for the Loma Vista area to build on all the housing. We also have some multifamily units that are planned that are moving forward in that area too. So the density is increasing, will also give us more rooftops to support that commercial. On the south end of town, this is at Clovis and Dakota. You may have seen some earth movers out there. Mike Pickett is developing some industrial in that area. So if that's a need that you have, he has spaces for lease and or maybe for sale, but he's doing about 25 acres of industrial. And that's a desperately needed thing for our community. We don't have enough, and that'll really help us add some jobs to our community. And then also over in the old, we call it the Pelco Park. Pelco is pretty much not there anymore. Schneider still has a footprint, but the county has taken over. But DDG, Diversified Development Group, has 25 acres, and they're putting up some large buildings relatively soon, 60 to 80,000 square feet for users. So that if you have a need of that size, we have an opportunity for you. I'm also really excited to see that Costco not just stay vacant and become an eyesore. It's a beautiful building. If you haven't been by, it's really amazing to see what the Cook family has done in partnership with the County of Fresno to turn the old Costco into Class A office. It's pretty amazing and a really huge investment in our Southwest area. Shaw Avenue is also a large opportunity. There's some vacancies in the areas, not as many as you would think, but we are working really hard to look at the land uses in that area. And I'll give you one snippet of an example. We recently changed our code to allow for some last mile fulfillment centers to go into commercial rather than into industrial, with some caveats that wouldn't be too impactful to the neighborhood or to the shopping centers. And we've actually had at least one take advantage of that and fill a space. Shaw Avenue, I see it as one of the biggest opportunities we have to reinforce our community and build on it. We're also have been working really hard looking at what land use needs to look like going forward the next 10, 15 years along the Shaw Avenue corridor. looking at Sierra Vista Mall and other commercial properties, so that we position things well land use wise to meet the market demand and encourage reinvestment. We've had a ton of success between the Costco, filling the old Kmart, getting Hobby Lobby and the Toys R Us, getting the hotels, adding restaurants, repurposing buildings. But we're here and ready and pushing to take it to the next level. So Shaw Avenue is a big priority for the city. And those are the comments we had. So I'll turn it back over to Greg, and he can fire away with questions or.
Hey, Andy, this is John. Do me a favor and just go back one slide if you would. Sorry.
Oh, sure.
One thing I forgot to cover was going to be the general plan update that is going to have an impact on the city working over the next 2 years. Just go down to the very last slide. Yeah, there. Go up one. So if you, Andy, if you could identify, okay, those are the City of Clovis city limits. The Loma Vista is in the southeast part of town, and it was approved in April of 2003. So it's taken approximately, and right now it's approximately 75% built out. So it's taken 25 years. We're now headed north of Shepherd in the northwest area, and that area between Shepherd and Copper. You guys have seen development up there, and it will likely be a 20 to 25 year project for us to build out up in the northwest. So the general plan update, we're going to start with, it was approved in August of 2014, and we're going to do an audit of the general plan to kind of identify what changes are going to need to be made with an update and how extensive it'll be. So that'll be a significant project, just because things have changed so much in the past 10 years on what we thought was going to be our final general plan for 20 years. But there's a lot of new laws out there that are affecting our what we're going to build in the future. So I just wanted to add that. So Greg, back over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Yeah, Andy, I wrote out, 10 questions, and I know you're so efficient. You pretty much answered them all in that fantastic presentation. So that was very complete and appreciated. But I'm going to just touch on a couple points, and then we'll open it up to those in attendance. Let's talk about hotels real quick, because I know those have become very, very important to our community. So, over the last 10 years, let's say, how many hotel rooms have we added? And then can you just explain the importance of not just on the tourism side, but also on the TOT income side, and how that affects our general, the budget?
Yeah, so roughly about 10 years ago, we probably had 400 hotel rooms in the city of Clovis. That could be off, within 50 to 100 on either end. We now have about 1,300 with another 125 under construction. So it's been a huge focus and growth effort by the city staff to attract hotels, which part of that story is the events, both the Clovis Unified and the Chamber and others bring. Part of that is our proximity to the airport and our business community growing. And part of that is people want to stay somewhere nice when they come to the region, and Clovis fits that bill. So of the rooms in the whole entire market, we still have a relatively small slice. We are getting more rooms than probably our share. Not saying this if you did it basically on a pure population or size. So we are winning the game in attracting hotels to Clovis. Hotels are unique in how revenues are shared, and with cities. So when you go and you pay sales tax at, say, Costco or anywhere else, of that 8 cents in sales tax that you're paying or what have you, about a penny of that goes to the city of Clovis. When you go to a hotel in Clovis and you pay the 10% transit occupancy tax, or if you do this in any other community, that full 10% comes to the city of Clovis. So it's been a huge growing revenue line and diversification line for the city. Some cities are hugely dependent on transit occupancy tax, such as like Anaheim, as you could imagine. We're not. We're really diversified in our revenue streams, but we're also trying to diversify So we're not so dependent on other revenue streams. So TOT brings to the city about $2 million a year and growing. And we are having further interest in more hotels in the city. We're cautiously looking at how much we should grow and trying to measure that, but we do know that we're snagging market share from others at this point as we push forward and are seeing our occupancy rates stay really strong here in the city. And then those in turn bring people into town that purchase fuel and meals and pick up whatever they need while they're in town, and hopefully do some shopping in Old Town and enjoy our community.
Okay, thank you very much. And we've seen the growth, and that leads me to facilities. So, the more folks that can come here for either, tourism just for their own personal or business, I know the Memorial District has done a fantastic job with growing their facility. Do you see a need for further convention facilities or meeting facilities to make Clovis more attractive, since now we have the hotel rooms to house those type large groups? Excuse me.
Yeah, that would be a major next step in developing our kind of destination tourism economy here. Oftentimes, those types of facilities are hard to support financially because it's very competitive across cities across the state, and we're not known to be like a great convention location. But we do see a lot of interest and demand for just meeting room space, and not enough in town. So we probably should look at taking baby steps in that and slowly growing it as a community, and really putting us as a spot to come central in the state and looking to leverage outside destinations such as Yosemite or the High Sierra for conventions that come to town, so that they can go and enjoy things around the area as well to take the next step. But essentially that's what's happened with Clovis Unified investing in their athletic facilities, attracting statewide track meets. That's really a convention. It's just of athletes, and we've seen the benefits of that. So there's no reason why we couldn't do it. It's just that's the next step. So maybe that's the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Let me move over to education real quick. And I see that Dr. Lori Bennett from the president of Clovis Community College is on the line. But can you just talk about, and it's, you can toot your own horn or our city's horn, but starting with Clovis Unified, going into Clovis Community College, and then Fresno State. Clovis Unified has the fantastic reputation statewide, and then Clovis Community College just keeps winning awards after awards for what they're doing over there. But can you talk about how instrumental that is to attracting families and then hopefully keeping those educated folks here in town?
I can go ahead and take that, or Dr. Bennett jump in, but one of the problems that we had regionally is going to be putting our kids through school and then having them move on to other larger metropolitan areas. With the popularity of Clovis Community College and Fresno State, we're seeing many more of our youth who are staying here for college, and then therefore also staying here. And that's critically important to have our people here. And what I've also experienced is going to be quite a few young people who do leave the area, and they might be there for a period of time, 10 years, whatever it is, and then they begin to have kids. They realize that they might want to replicate for their kids what they did, so they end up relocating back to the city of Clovis. So that's a good thing. And so the popularity of the colleges that we have in the area and the school district for Clovis Unified is a significant benefit to the region.
And if I could jump on there, things like the partnership between Clovis Community College and California Health Sciences University is huge. That a kid can go from Clovis High to Clovis North, go to Clovis Community College, get there 2 years, and then go straight into a doctoral program at the pharmacy school. Those are the kind of things that are going to keep our kids here and keep our talent here and provide a workforce for businesses here. You also see that in the mechatronics program at Clovis Community College that's supporting a lot of our industrial users, such as Wawona. So Dr. Bennett has been huge in advocating for programs that will allow kids to stay here, to have a successful career for business here and meet business needs here. So I'm excited about the future. We've come a long ways in the last 20 years in my experience. We also have a huge asset in Fresno State sitting right next to us. But those types of things are what needs to happen to continue the trajectory of keeping our children engaged here, wanting to stay here, and providing the workforce our businesses need.
Okay, thank you. Let me move on to healthcare real quick. So we see the expansion, the growth of the Clovis Community Medical Center, and then all the adjacent facilities that are coming. So what can you talk about a little bit of what you see in that area in the next 10 years? And then also, why is Clovis attractive to these new facilities coming in? And what does that do job creation wise for our community?
It's huge. Andy, why don't you go ahead and talk about the beginning with the Clovis Hospital and the expansion that's going on there?
So the hospital is, by the time they're going to be done with their current expansion project, will be 4 times the size it was in like 2005. They've gone from about 500 employees. They'll probably be at 3,000 employees by the time they fully staff their new bed tower, maybe slightly more. That's a huge economic driver. I don't know about you, but when a house sells in my neighborhood, usually it's to someone that's associated with the hospital, a nurse, a doctor, someone moving into the area for that job. So that's a huge driver, and really has diversified our economy. Back in 2006-07, when the economy crashed, if you look at our job makeup back then, it was heavily reliant on construction and related industries. Whereas now we are really diversified with the medical jobs coming online, and hopefully we'll provide a buffer for the next time things slow down, which could be any moment. So I'm encouraged by that. Also with that, everyone wants to be close to a hospital like that. So that's why we're seeing all the medical offices pop up around, both on the campus and to the west. Those are additional jobs that are being created and economic activity in that area and further investment. And then just down the street from there, we're going to have the Veterans Administration open up a medical office building that's going to be significantly larger than anything else on the corridor, probably about 120,000 square feet of medical office space. And they'll have a number of employees there coming into Clovis, serving our veterans. Plus some other medical users are looking at land in between. Then to the north of that, you have California Health Sciences University, which is going to be churning out doctors and pharmacists, amongst other disciplines they like to add. So it's a pretty significant ecosystem to build on the medical economy. And I see it as our future economic growth engine for the city of Clovis and really the region.
If you take a drive through Clovis community, you wouldn't believe how much growth has taken place. 10 years ago, it looked like they had so much empty space, but now when you drive it, it seems like they're nearly completely built out on that large campus.
Yeah. And what do we do with that as a city stepping forward from there? Is we spent the last 5-8 years really working on attracting medical users and doctors to the area, and we've had success at that. The next step is to really start working with the university and the hospital on what kind of partners can we bring, such as medical device manufacturers or employers that serve those campuses or research facilities, to take it to the next step of bringing in some kind of down supply chain medical users into that area to further leverage the hospital. Plus, we want to see things grow in that area that provide services, restaurants, hotels, commercial use. So it's really exciting to be part of it, and the more the merrier. So jump on in if you guys are interested in being part of that.
Well, I mean, we see all this great growth and commercial housing, office. So how do you plan, just kind of the nuts and bolts of what you guys do every day? How do you plan for the future as far as the services that the city needs to provide our residents, our owners of land and property? So basic services, police, fire, water, sewer. You don't have to get into the weeds about it, but you have to plan those things years in advance for this growth. Where is the city as far as that planning?
Okay, so it's relatively simple, but very complicated. I talked about the general plan, and the general plan kind of provides a vision of what the city could build out to. So you start off with a general plan, and in that general plan, you're going to take a look at everything: economic impact, your police and fire services, your literally sewer, water, everything that we provide. So we start off with that general plan picture up on the wall where we think how development is going to occur. And then what we have to, and this is years in the making and it's constantly changing, but what we then have to do is go through and update our master plans. And we're going to have a water master plan, a sewer master plan, a recycled water master plan. And all of those have to be developed to literally provide the plumbing and services necessary for us in the future. In addition to that, we need to also take a look at our financial ability to provide many of those services. In the city of Clovis, as far as development goes, we try and have, as much as possible, development pay for itself as we grow. Going through the last general plan update beginning in 2009, the general plan that we did began in 2009. We completed it in 2014. And then we spent about 3 years on the master plans to identify how we would provide services. So a total of almost 10 years to develop that. And that's kind of the tool that we use to identify how we're going to provide the services and infrastructure as development occurs. So what ends up happening is going to be that if the state comes along and says that we need to build much denser housing, and we literally did not plan the infrastructure for a certain density, it's hard to go back and resize a pipe from 16-inch to 24. So we run into problems there. So we'll generally plan for and build an additional capacity to be able to accommodate development as it goes forward.
Yeah, so one thing to think about is a lot of businesses are driven by, monthly, quarterly, maybe down to daily results on your revenues and expenses. The city's the long game. We've been here, 110 years, and we don't always match in time our development plans. Different things develop at different rates. So we've been playing catch up on our commercial side, especially for the last decade, trying to catch up, because it provides revenues to the city, probably more so than residential does. So we get in these mismatches where it's really hard to manage those, when you get in these moments of time of well, the general plan, if it was fully built out, we'd have the correct number of jobs relative to the housing, relative to commercial, relative to industrial, but it doesn't all happen at once. Usually you see economic spurts and that. So where it gets really challenging as an administrator, and I'm learning this, is how do you bridge those gaps in time? Sometimes they can be good gaps, sometimes they can be bad gaps, but there's always gaps in place. And so that by the time you get to the end of a general plan or the end of a planning process for an area, the end result is good, but you've got to figure out how to match things up to meet service demands in the meantime. Because, for instance, we've had in our general plan the R&T park for 20 plus years, and we're just seeing it start to blow up now, starting to take off, and that's providing jobs and all the good things that it does. But we've been having to reserve that land for 20 years and not really producing anything for the city or the community. So how do we bridge that gap while there are demands for services and surrounding houses and residents? So it can be challenging, and that's why City Council has us here to figure that out.
Okay, thank you. I only have just one more question, but if anybody has a question, please use the chat function. If you have a question, you could just type it out real quick, and then we will ask Andy and or John your question. So crystal ball time, you look at, the next, let's say the next 5 years. So we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully. We've been on this long 2-year journey now. But where do you see where do you see us in 5 years? So what's your goal? And, 5 years from now, where do you want us to be as a city? I know it's a very general question.
Okay, I'll jump on that. One is going to be, so coming out of the pandemic, uh, we've been on pause for 2 years, basically. And what I'd like to see happen over the next 5 years would be to update the general plan, take a look at and I went back to one of the challenges I do have is going to be that continuing to provide the level of service that we do have, whether it be police or fire or sanitation, anything, and potentially the ability to enhance them. And so on a daily basis, we take a look at the services we provide and we see how we can improve them. We do have a very dedicated workforce that I am proud of. Luke would say that I would put any of my employees up against any other government employee and we would fare pretty well. In 5 years, we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to be a destination of choice, and we have to be able to provide the infrastructure, the housing, affordability. And Andy kind of alluded to it, but I kind of want to just clarify it's going to be that residential housing by itself provides some revenue through property taxes and other things, but it doesn't really pay for the cost of services totally when I'm talking about police and fire and others. So we make up that difference on the commercial, the non-residential, which would be the commercial. So that's why Andy's job over the past 5 years with economic development has been so important. So as we go forward in the next 5 years, the Costco's and the retail development is going to be important to us, but we're kind of seeing how that's changing with the online purchases and the distribution of taxes. It's kind of an antiquated system of distribution of revenues at the state level that's not keeping up with how our city operates, and across the nation also. But Andy, what else you got?
Yeah, so, and this is just building on what John has said. The reason why we've had success over the last 10 years economically is because we were ready. We were ready for the growth, commercial, industrial, land use wise. All that's really important. If you're in the development business, you know how valuable land use entitlements are. And so one of my goals is that over the next 5 years that we continue to be ready and in our growth areas and opportunity areas so that a business that's ready to grow has a spot to grow. And that's how we can be the biggest supporter of business in our community to allow businesses to grow. And then also support the businesses that are here, helping them deal with the California issues, the challenges that we all walked through, for instance, the last few years during the pandemic together. So keeping those relationships strong so our business community is supported and doesn't feel isolated in any way, but feels like they're a full partner with the city. And our residents feel the same way. So that goes back to land use planning and master planning and providing warm connections to the city, to the business community. So all those things are where I see us in 5 years kind of continuing where we're at, but that's going to take a lot of work.
And in addition to that, is going to be for us to maintain, the city of Clovis is of the size where we've been pretty successful in maintaining a good relationship with the major stakeholders, which some large cities aren't able to do just because they get too big. And I'm talking about the Clovis Unified School District, Clovis Community College, the Rodeo, the Chamber of Commerce, the Veterans Memorial District. We need to nurture the relationship and it will enhance things when certain projects or problems come along, we know who to call.
Just real quick, we talk about our growth and smart planning, and for anybody who's done business in other cities, you compare that, and just as my personal opinion, I mean, it's an absolute pleasure to do business in Clovis, from the city council to the city manager and staff. I mean, you guys are approachable, you're responsive, and it really is a blessing. And I'm not just tooting Clovis's horn because I wear that on my logo on my shirt, but it is different, and it is. I think you can see it in everything Clovis does. But we're growing, and which is fantastic. But I get asked this question a lot: how do you grow as a community, bring in all these national facilities, all this great stuff, but then still maintain, and I'll use the motto, the Clovis way of life? How do you maintain that small town feel while we're growing?
It's a tough one, and I guess it's one relationship at a time. It kind of goes back to all our size. One of the major benefits that we have with our city council is going to be the long-term tenure a majority of our council has. You take a look at Lynn, Bob, Jose, probably in the neighborhood of 20 years. And then we got Vong and Drew have been on since 2017. So from staff standpoint, we're blessed with the city council we do have. Many other jurisdictions have a significant turnover of their council. And kind of going back to the general plan, talking about the idea of the village concept, and the village concept was, we know we're going to continue to grow, and the old town downtown is the center of the city of Clovis, and the village concept going out to Loma Vista in the southeast and then moving forward up into the northwest with Heritage Grove would be to try and build a village that could stand on its own and still maintain that small town atmosphere. In the Loma Vista area, where I said we're about 75% built out, we're just now, after almost 20 years, getting commercial development out there so that somebody could not have to go all the way across town to go to a Save Mart. They might be able to go to a Starbucks or some other stuff in their local community. So trying to maintain, going forward as we continue to grow, trying to maintain that small town atmosphere, or the Clovis way of life, is going to be to develop those villages so that they each have their unique identity.
Okay.
That makes sense?
And I would push that back onto the chamber somewhat. You guys have a huge role in that, of providing connection in the community, the networking you do, the support you do, the welcoming that you provide to every business in town. Those are huge things to welcome someone into our community. And other groups are involved in that too, whether it's your local church or religious organization, service clubs. We all need to support those things as much as possible to keep people connected in our community and not feel like they're just a resident or just another business that could just disappear and no one would notice. We all have to build relationships in our circle of influence.
Okay. I do have a question from one of our attendees. The question is, how does the farming industry affect Clovis, or where does it fit into the master plan?
So Wawona is our largest ag employer here in Clovis. Just so you know, they're the largest peach processor in the United States, and it's right here in Clovis. Proud to have them. Huge legacy that business has had, and large employer for the city too. So that it's a huge piece. We also have quite a few professional firms that work in the ag area. Some technology firms, such as Agrian, that produces software out of their offices here in Clovis for the whole entire world. So ag is a big part of our community and will continue to be so. We spend quite a bit of time, for instance, going to food processing shows and those types of places to encourage others to be part of the Clovis community or serve businesses that are in the ag industry here in Clovis. So I don't see that going away anytime soon. We also partner with like the WET Center at Fresno State, which is ag focused incubator for water technology. And mechatronics has a huge piece in the ag food processing industry out at Clovis Community College. So it's definitely a baseline economy here, and frankly, it's growing. So.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions in the chat. I can open it up. If anybody has a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it. Now, as we have John and Andy here with us. Quiet group. My goodness gracious. Well, you guys have been fantastic, and I get the pleasure to work with John and Andy and have over the years. And like I said, very responsive, very professional, and we get a lot done here in Clovis. So I'm appreciative of both of them. And we thank you very much. Before I sign off, so to speak, I want to mention our next Wake Up Clovis is going to be on March 9th, and we're going to have the Clovis Rodeo Association on, and they're going to talk about the Clovis Rodeo, the history, and what we can look forward to for this year. So we're excited about that. And Andy and John, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you, your staff, and everybody who works serving us at the City of Clovis. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg, for putting this on. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.